hilum or the hilus. So again, it's not a structure, it's just the general area. And that's how I'd ask it. What's this general area called where things come in and out? What's coming in is the renal artery. What comes out is the renal vein and the ureter, and that general area is called the hilus. If we open that up, then you've got the outer part is the cortex, and then all this in here is the medulla, and then in the medulla you've got renal columns, renal pyramids, renal column, renal pyramid, column, pyramid. You can't really see the column there, but pyramid, column, pyramid. At the base of these pyramids would be the minor calyx, would be like here, here, and then it starts to get hard to see the rest of it, okay? So then we'll come over here. Okay, so looking at the kidney here, doing the same thing. So what comes in would be the renal artery, coming out renal vein, ureter, general area would be the hilus. We've got the cortex, and then all of this here in the middle would be the medulla. You've got in the medulla renal pyramid, renal column, renal pyramid, column, pyramid, kind of a column, pyramid, column, pyramid. At the base of those pyramids, you've got your minor calyx, so inside of there, minor calyx, inside of there, minor calyx. And then the urine that collects in the minor will then drain to a major. So like that would be a major. These minors right here would drain to that major. These minors, there'd be like a major under there probably. And then the urine that's in the major calyx, so like here, here, would then drain here into the renal pelvis. And then from the renal pelvis, it's going to exit the kidney going through the ureter. Okay, then we're going to look at the nephron. So we're basically going to be looking at this thing in here. So we've got cortex up here, and then the renal pyramid, and we can see that the nephron's kind of looping from cortex into the pyramid. And so this right here is blown up here. The same thing here. So these would be the pyramids. Here you can really see it's a pyramid. Cortex, and then the medulla, thank you, in here. And then over here, it's a little bit harder to see, but same basic idea. So this would be the cortex here, and then down here would be the medulla. So if we look at these little balls right there, those are your corpuscles. So like these are all your corpuscles. And then these are just corpuscles that have been cut open so you can see inside. So you've got all these renal corpuscles, but because of space, they don't have renal tubules attached to all of them. They only attach renal tubules to this one and to that one, just because of space, but they would be on all of them. Over here, they're just showing you 3 corpuscles, and to each of those, they put renal tubules on them, but they didn't open that up so you could see inside, okay, but it's the same thing. So if we look at this one right here, so renal corpuscle, leaving the corpuscle, you go PCT, descending limb of the loop of Henle, ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Then the DCT is kind of weird here, but this would be DCT because you see it draining into a collecting duct that would come down like this, and then there would be your minor calyx. If we look at this one, so corpuscle, PCT, descending limb of the loop of Henle, ascending limb of the loop of Henle, DCT, draining into the collecting duct. Okay, we do it over here. So let's take this one. So we've got corpuscle that we can see inside of it, PCT, descending limb of the loop of Henle, ascending limb of the loop of Henle, DCT, collecting duct, minor calyx would be right here. Corpuscle, PCT, descending limb of the loop of Henle, ascending limb of the loop of Henle, DCT, draining into a collecting duct. Now, you can't really see it on here, so we're going to look at this one. If we look at blood flow, okay, again, for simplicity's sake, they don't really show you a whole lot, but, boy, can we even see? Yeah, kind of. So you can kind of see, when I look for the afferent and the efferent arterial, I kind of look for a decent sized artery here. And then coming off of this decent sized artery, you would have like, that would be an afferent arterial coming in here, afferent arterial coming into the glomerulus, afferent arterial coming in here, afferent coming in here. And then leaving, here would be your efferent arterial, like right there. And then these would be peritubular capillaries, but they just don't show you wrapping around it. Because they're so hard to see on here, what I usually do is I just ask you with words. So I'll say, what blood vessel brings blood into the glomerulus? What blood vessel takes blood out of the glomerulus? And inevitably, what I want you to say is afferent arterial, efferent arterial. And people will tell me afferent artery and you lose half a point, or efferent artery, you lose half a point, okay? So it's afferent arterial takes it in, efferent arterial takes it out, okay? Now, this right here is just your corpuscle blown up, corpuscle blown up. So here's your Bowman's capsule. You can see that it's simple squamous epithelia. And then this is the PCT. You can see simple cuboidal epithelia. Should be microvilli, but they can't really show you the microvilli on here, okay? This is your glomerulus in here. And then this is your, let's see, which one would it be? So your afferent arterial would be this one, efferent is this. But again, I don't like these floating vessels, so I won't ask you from this, okay? But that's essentially what it is. And then that is your DCT, just kind of, so we go PCT, loop of Henle, DCT. So that's your DCT right there. But again, I don't like these floaters. So I might ask you PCT here. I'd ask you Bowman's capsule here. I'd ask you glomerulus here, but I wouldn't ask you these because they're floating in space. I don't like that stuff, okay? This one over here, Bowman's capsule. And I'll say something about the single layer of cells make up the structure or something like that, as opposed to the whole thing is renal corpuscle, okay? So Bowman's capsule or glomerular capsule. Capsular space is the empty space in there. That's where your filtrate would go. This whole thing here is your glomerulus. And then all together, that's your renal corpuscle. So if I say anything about the whole thing, corpuscle, okay, corpuscle. PCT, again, that's DCT, but I wouldn't ask you from that. I would ask you over here. Lastly, you need to have a bladder. Let me go grab a bladder for you. I forgot that one. Okay, I'll bring it over to you. Sarah. Bladder. And then eventually you'll do reproduction where you'll look at female reproduction and male. So I didn't bring the male over because you'll get there eventually. But this right here, you guys will learn this when you do reproduction. That's your uterus right here. And then your bladder is right here. Okay, that's your bladder right there. This right here is the uterus, and then that's the bladder. So the female bladder sits underneath the uterus, and then you guys will learn later, these are fallopian tubes and the ovaries. You'll learn that later, okay? So bladder, bladder for females. These would be your ureters, okay, coming from each kidney there, and then coming from the other kidney right there, okay? For the male, here's your ureters. This whole thing is the bladder, okay? And underneath is the prostate gland. And you guys will get that later when you do reproduction. So ureter, ureter, bladder. All this is the bladder. Underneath is the prostate gland. You'll get that later. For the male, because females is a sagittal section like this, and for males, it is a coronal cut. Okay, so we're going to use the male bladder. When you open that up, so again, ureter, ureter, here's the prostate gland, and running through the prostate gland, leaving the bladder, is the urethra. So that's the top part of the urethra. Then it would continue through the male penis, okay, which you'll see when we do reproduction later. The reason we look at this one, you can't see it on the female one, but if you look in here, you can see a triangle that forms right in here. It forms from opening of the ureter there, opening of this ureter there, and then the urethra right there. So you got this little triangle. It's called the trigon of the bladder. And that's often used like in imaging. You know, you can see like potentially infection or, you know, something like that. But that's the trigon right there. And then lastly, if you pop this off, and again, you can see this if you look at the male also, but just find where the bladder is. So bladder, uterus, uterus, bladder. Here's the urethra. So that's the female urethra. You guys will get to this later, but the vagina is here. Okay, so bladder, urethra. The very end of the urethra, the very end of it is called the external urethral orifice. It's just the very bottom hole, the bottom opening. External urethral orifice right there. Do the same thing on males. You just come to the very end of the penis, follow the urethra down through the penis, very end of it, external urethral orifice. For males, the urethra is a common passageway for urine and for semen. For females, it's just urine. Okay, and we'll get to that later. Okay, that's it.